The crippled Intrepid limped through the solar system's outer reaches, its life support systems failing. Commander Elena Vassiliev ignored the blood trickling from her temple as she studied the damage reports flooding her console. Half the crew was dead, and the other half might join them if she couldn't get the ship home. "Status on the quantum comm?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. Lieutenant Rodriguez shook his head, hands dancing across his shattered console. "Still offline, Commander. We can't warn Earth." Elena stared at the view screen, now cracked and flickering. The empty void of space seemed different now, more threatening. She thought of the cerulean ships, beautiful crystalline vessels that had approached with such apparent benevolence before revealing their true nature. "Dr. Patel," Elena called to the xenolinguist who had first noticed the subtle threats in the alien transmission. "What else can you tell me about them?" The Indian scientist looked up from where she was treating a wounded ensign. "Their language structure suggests a hive consciousness, Commander." Individual words carried emotional resonances that seemed disgusted when referring to us. "Like we were vermin," Rodriguez added quietly. Elena nodded. "They saw us as prey, and they'll see Earth the same way." She pushed herself from her chair, ignoring the pain in her ribs, and addressed the remaining bridge crew. "The ceruleans will follow. Maybe not today, but soon. We need to reach Earth with what we know, with the sensor data, the weapons signatures, everything. Humanity needs time to prepare." The journey home took weeks. With the FTL drive destroyed, they relied on conventional propulsion, rationing oxygen and food to dangerous levels. Elena recorded everything she could remember about the encounter, making detailed notes on cerulean tactics and technology. Their weapons had sliced through the Intrepid's hull like it was paper, but the alien vessels had shown surprising vulnerability to the plasma discharge from the vented reactor. When Earth finally appeared on their view screen, a ragged cheer went up from the surviving crew. Elena didn't join them. She was already thinking about what came next. The debriefing lasted for days. Military officials, scientists, and government representatives questioned her relentlessly. Some didn't believe her. Others wanted to send diplomatic missions to attempt communication again. That would be suicide. Elena told the United Earth Council, her patience wearing thin. "You didn't see what I saw. They didn't attack us because of a misunderstanding. They attacked because that's what they do. We're not people to them. We're resources to be harvested." Admiral Chen, head of the Space Force, was the only one who seemed to truly understand. He sat quietly through most of the proceedings, asking few questions, but listening intently. A month after the Intrepid's return, Elena was summoned to a classified facility beneath the lunar surface. Admiral Chen met her personally at the airlock. "Commander Vassiliev," he said, shaking her hand firmly. "Your report has initiated the biggest military buildup in human history. Has there been any sign of the ceruleans?" she asked. Chen shook his head. "Not yet, but our new deep space arrays have detected energy signatures at the edge of the system. They're coming, just as you predicted." He led her through security checkpoints into a massive chamber carved from the lunar bedrock. Engineers and scientists bustled around holographic displays, showing designs unlike anything Elena had seen before. "What is this?" she breathed. Admiral Chen's expression was grim but determined. "This, Commander, is humanity's answer to the cerulean threat. We're building ships, but not the kind they'll expect. If they think humans will be easy prey, they're about to learn how wrong they are." Elena studied the schematics hovering before her. Massive, armored vessels built into hollowed-out asteroids. "We're calling them battle carriers," Chen said. "And I want you to command the first one." Elena ran her hand along the rough interior wall of the asteroid, feeling the embedded support struts beneath her fingers. 5 years had transformed her from an explorer into a warrior. The same transformation had happened to humanity as a whole. "We've reinforced the natural structure with a carbon-titanium lattice," explained Chief Engineer Takahashi as they walked through a cavernous chamber being fitted with launch bays. The outer shell is 300 meters thick in places. No energy weapon the Ceruleans possess can penetrate it quickly. And if they try to board us? Elena asked, watching teams of workers installing defensive turrets at strategic junctions. Takahashi smiled grimly. Then they'll face a maze designed to kill them. Every corridor can be sealed and vented. Every intersection becomes a kill box. The Thermopylae isn't just a ship, Commander. It's a fortress. Admiral Chen joined them as they entered what would become the bridge, a spherical chamber suspended in the asteroid's heart, protected by layers of rock and metal. The Ceruleans' vessels are beautiful, Chen said, activating a holographic display of the crystalline alien ships they'd encountered. Elegant, fast, powerful. Their entire civilization follows the same aesthetic. They value symmetry, efficiency, grace. He gestured around at the rough-hewn walls and exposed conduits of the carrier. We're building the opposite. Ugly, brutal machines designed for a single purpose, to absorb punishment and deliver worse. Elena studied the tactical displays showing the Thermopylae's capabilities. The dropships, nearly 300, Chen replied, each capable of carrying a full platoon of Marines in powered armor. The Ceruleans fight at a distance, with energy weapons and drones. We'll fight up close, where humans excel. A young lieutenant approached with a tablet. Admiral, we've received confirmation. The Cerulean fleet has established a forward base on Titan. Chen's expression hardened. Sooner than expected. Show the commander our deployment plan. The tactical display shifted to show the solar system. 8 markers representing the newly completed battle carriers appeared near Earth. We're not waiting for them to attack, Chen said. The Thermopylae leads the assault in 3 weeks. Elena felt her stomach tighten. The ship won't be fully operational by then. It doesn't need to be. The outer defenses and main weapons are ready. That's enough. Later, alone in her quarters, Elena reviewed the crew assignments. 30,000 personnel would serve aboard the Thermopylae. Soldiers, engineers, pilots, medical staff, even civilians with specialized skills. A small city enclosed in rock, hurling through space to meet an alien threat. Her comm unit chimed. Dr. Elias Mbiki's face appeared on the screen, his dark eyes intense beneath a furrowed brow. Commander, I need to show you something, the xenobiologist said without preamble. It's about the Cerulean prisoner. Elena had forgotten about the alien captive, taken during a skirmish near Europa 3 months ago. What about it? It's reacting strangely to human proximity, I think. Mbiki hesitated. I think we're causing it pain just by being near it. Explain. The Ceruleans are telepathic, as we suspected, but human brains emit patterns that disrupt their communications. The closer we get, the worse the effect. It's like static drowning out their thoughts. Elena leaned forward. Are you suggesting what I think you're suggesting? Mbiki nodded slowly. With the right equipment, we could amplify this effect. Turn it into a weapon. Not just a defense, but something that would make us terrifying to them. Admiral Chen received the proposal the next morning. By afternoon, a new project was underway in the Thermopylae's depths. The Nightmare Engine, designed to broadcast human thought patterns directly into Cerulean minds. As Elena watched the device being assembled, she wondered what they were becoming in response to this threat. The elegant, peaceful ships of exploration, like the Intrepid, seemed to belong to another era. Now humanity built monsters of metal and stone, filled with soldiers and weapons. The Ceruleans had awakened something ancient in human nature. Soon, they would learn why Earth's history had always been written in the blood of those who underestimated humanity's capacity for war. Dr. Elias Mbeki adjusted the neural interface on his temple as he studied the readings from the captive Cerulean. The alien floated in a suspension tank, its crystalline appendages twitching involuntarily whenever a human approached. The laboratory deep within the Thermopylae had become Mbiki's home for the past months, his obsession with understanding the enemy growing alongside his revolutionary discoveries. Record Session 27. He spoke to his AI assistant. Subject continues to exhibit heightened distress when exposed to unfiltered human thought patterns. Alina watched from behind a reinforced viewport, arms crossed. Can it understand what we're thinking? Mbiki shook his head. Not the content, Commander. It's more fundamental than that. Their hive mind consciousness operates on predictable frequencies, ordered and harmonious. Human brains are chaotic by comparison. Individual, unpredictable, constantly shifting. To them, it's like listening to thousands of people screaming in different languages simultaneously. He adjusted a dial, and the alien's body contorted in the suspension fluid. What's most fascinating is how the effect intensifies with proximity and numbers. 1 human causes discomfort, 100 causes pain. Thousands could kill them. Alina finished. Or worse, Mbiki said, his voice dropping. I've been exposing the subject to increasing doses. At the highest levels, its hive-mind connection begins to fragment. Individuality starts to emerge. He looked up at Alina, eyes bright with the implications. Imagine what that means to a species that has never known isolation. Alina considered this, like a lifetime of perfect silence suddenly shattered by overwhelming noise. Exactly. Not just physical pain, but existential terror. 2 days later, Alina stood with Admiral Chen in the newly completed psychic amplification chamber at the Thermopyla's core. The massive spherical room was lined with neural transmitters designed to capture and broadcast human thought patterns. 300 crew members will be connected to the system at any given time, the project engineer explained. Their thought patterns, amplified and projected outward. At maximum power, the effect should extend 5 kilometers beyond the carrier's hull. Chen studied the readouts, and the impact on our people. Minimal. Some report mild headaches, occasional shared dreams. Nothing serious. Alina wasn't convinced. I want to be part of the first rotation. Commander, Chen began to object. If we're asking our crew to do this, I need to understand exactly what we're asking of them, she said firmly. 24 hours later, Alina lay in one of the neural interface pods, electrodes attached to her skull. Around her, 299 other volunteers prepared for the first full-scale test. Initiating in 3, 2, 1. Mbiki's voice came through the speakers. The sensation began subtly, a feeling of expansion, as if Alina's thoughts were stretching beyond her skull. Then came awareness of others, fragments of memories, emotions, flashes of sensation that weren't her own. Not mind-reading, but something more primal, the raw essence of human consciousness flowing together while somehow remaining distinct. Power at 50%, reported Mbiki. Through the viewport, Alina could see the cerulean captive convulsing in its tank, its crystalline structure flashing with erratic pulses of light. 75%. A pressure built behind Alina's eyes, not painful, but intense. She could feel the others more strongly now. Fear, determination, curiosity, all mingling with her own emotions. Maximum power. The cerulean's body arched in silent agony. Fractures appeared along its surface as the unified pattern that had defined its existence for centuries began to break apart. For the first time in its life, it experienced something no cerulean was meant to know: individuality. When the test ended, Alina sat up slowly, her hands trembling slightly. "Are you all right, Commander?" Mbiki asked, helping her disconnect from the equipment. She nodded, trying to put the experience into words. It was overwhelming, but not unpleasant. She looked at the alien, now curled into a fetal position in its tank. What we just did to it, that's what we're planning to do to their entire fleet. Mbiki's expression was solemn. Yes, not just a weapon of war, but a weapon of terror. We're not just going to defeat them, Commander. We're going to change them forever. Marine Commander Jackson checked his powered armor seals one final time as the dropship shuddered around him. 30 of his best soldiers were packed into the cramped compartment, their faces hidden behind polarized visors. The Thermopyla had deployed its full complement of dropships, nearly 300 vessels swarming toward the Cerulean outpost on Titan. 2 minutes to atmospheric entry, announced the pilot over the comm. Braced for turbulence. Jackson activated the tactical display inside his helmet, showing the battle unfolding around them. The 5 human battle carriers hung in Saturn's orbit like massive irregular moons. Against them, a fleet of Cerulean vessels, sleek, crystalline, and utterly outmatched despite their superior numbers. "Remember your training," Jackson told his squad. "They fight at range. We get in close. They're telepathic. We're unpredictable. They're a hive mind. We're individuals." The dropship bucked violently as it hit Titan's atmosphere. Through the small viewport, Jackson could see dozens of other ships plummeting alongside them, trailing fire through the orange haze. Aboard the Thermopylae, Alina watched the tactical display with Admiral Chen at her side. The psychic amplification system hummed around them, broadcasting the combined consciousness of 300 crew members directly at the Cerulean fleet. "They're breaking formation," reported the tactical officer. "Sensor readings show irregular energy signatures in their command vessels." "Sir, I think they're panicking." Chen nodded grimly. "Dr. Mbiki's weapon is working. Now for Phase 2. Alina keyed her comm. "All carrier commanders, initiate bombardment. Target their support vessels first." The battle carriers opened fire simultaneously, massive railguns accelerating tungsten projectiles to relativistic speeds. The simple kinetic weapons tore through the elegant energy shields of the Cerulean ships, designed to deflect energy weapons, but nearly useless against solid projectiles moving at a significant fraction of light speed. On Titan's surface, Jackson's dropship landed hard on the frozen methane surface near the alien outpost, a crystalline structure that shimmered with internal light, beautiful despite its purpose as a forward military base. "Move out," he ordered, the squad deploying in practiced formation. Around them, hundreds of other dropships were disgorging thousands of Marines. The ground shook as heavier landing craft delivered tanks and artillery. The Cerulean defenders emerged from their base, wielding energy weapons that fired beams of coherent light. Several Marines fell in the first volley, their armor melting under the intense heat. "Close the distance," Jackson shouted, activating his armor's jump boosters. He soared 30 meters through Titan's low gravity, landing behind a crystalline barricade. The alien defender turned too slowly, unused to enemies who would choose close combat. Jackson's shotgun roared, the special fragmenting rounds shattering the Cerulean's crystalline body. Across the battlefield, the same scene repeated as human Marines closed to point-blank range, negating the Cerulean's technological advantage with sheer aggression. Inside the alien base, Jackson's squad moved room by room, encountering increasingly disordered resistance. The aliens seemed disoriented, their coordinated defense falling apart as the psychic static from the orbiting battle carriers disrupted their hive mind. Jackson turned a corner and found himself face to face with a Cerulean commander, larger than the others, its crystalline body glowing with internal energy. The alien raised a limb, energy gathering for a blast that would vaporize the human. 3 shotgun blasts hit the Cerulean simultaneously as Jackson's squad fired in unison. The alien commander shattered, its fragments skittering across the polished floor. In the command center, they found what they had come for, a terminal accessing the Cerulean communication network. Specialist Wong moved forward, attaching a quantum intrusion device. "Uplink established," she reported. "We're downloading their entire tactical database." Jackson stared at the alien hieroglyphics scrolling across the device's screen. "Send it to the Thermopylae. Tell them we've secured the facility." In orbit, Alina received the transmission with a mixture of relief and grim satisfaction. The first test of the battle carriers had succeeded beyond all expectations. The Cerulean fleet was in retreat, their ground forces surrendered or destroyed. "We've won the first battle," Chen said quietly. "But they'll adapt. They'll bring more ships next time." Alina nodded. Then we'll build more carriers. The cerulean overseer's crystalline body pulsed with agitation as it addressed the assembled representatives in the grand chamber. The vast space, carved from a single massive crystal, amplified its telepathic broadcasts to reach every mind present. Today, for the first time in the Dominion's 1,000-year history, the Overseer had called for aid from other species. The humans are not what we anticipated. The Overseer projected, memories of the Titan defeat flowing into the collective consciousness of the gathering. Their vessels defy conventional design principles. Their tactics violate established combat doctrines. Most disturbing of all, their minds resist our communion. The Vex representative shifted forward, its faceted body catching the light. Unlike the fluid crystalline structure of the ceruleans, the Vex were solid, angular beings with minds as ordered as their geometric forms. "You speak of fear, Overseer," the Vex communicated, its thoughts precise and measured. "This is unfamiliar to us. The Vex do not experience such emotions." "Then you have not faced humans yet," replied the Overseer, projecting the sensation of psychic static that had crippled their forces. The Vex representative recoiled, momentarily destabilized by the chaotic pattern. Across the chamber, the Morphani delegation swirled in their containment fields, their gaseous bodies forming complex patterns that constituted their language. "We have observed these humans from afar," they whispered into the collective consciousness. "They spread quickly, adapt rapidly. If left unchecked, they will destabilize the balance of power throughout this sector." The insectoid Krell, smallest of the four species but oldest in spacefaring experience, shittered among themselves before their queen spoke. "The Krell have seen species like these before. Aggressive, unpredictable, dangerous. In previous cycles, such species were contained before they could threaten galactic stability." Unknown to the assembled aliens, a human stealth probe floated silently near the chamber's exterior, its advanced sensors recording everything. Designed to mimic space debris, the device transmitted all proceedings back to Earth through a quantum entanglement link that couldn't be detected or intercepted. In her quarters aboard the Thermopylae, Elena watched the alien council with Admiral Chen and Dr. Makey. The universal translator struggled with some concepts, but the meaning was clear enough. "They're forming an alliance against us," Elena said quietly. Chen nodded. "4 species, each with technology centuries beyond ours, except for one crucial advantage." On the screen, the Vex representative was proposing a strategy. The human vessels must be engaged at extreme range, beyond the effect of their psychic weapons. Our combined fleets will deploy in a spherical formation, attacking from all vectors simultaneously. "They still don't understand," Mbeki observed. "They think the psychic effect is a technology we've developed, not an intrinsic property of human consciousness." The Cerulean Overseer projected agreement. "We will assemble our forces at the edge of their solar system. The Vex will provide specialized boarding craft to penetrate their carriers. The Morphani will disrupt their communications. The Krell will coordinate our attack." "When?" asked the Krell Queen. 3 solar cycles," replied the Overseer. "We must act quickly before they build more of their battle carriers." The transmission ended as the stealth probe reached its operational limits and self-destructed to avoid detection. Chen turned to Elena. 3 months. That's how long we have before they arrive with everything they can muster." "How many ships?" she asked. "Intelligence estimates between 3,000 and 5,000 vessels." Chen replied grimly. "Against our 12 operational carriers." Elena studied the tactical projections. "We should evacuate the civilian population from the outer colonies. Bring everyone back to Earth and Mars." Mbeki looked troubled. "Even if we defeat their fleet, this changes everything. We're not just facing the Ceruleans anymore. We've drawn the attention of the entire galactic community." "No," Elena corrected him, her expression hardening as she remembered the Alien Council's words. "We've drawn their fear, and that gives us an advantage they don't even realize." Chen nodded in agreement. "Prepare the fleet, Commander. The Thermopylae will lead our defense." The battle for humanity's survival is about to begin. The alien armada emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, thousands of vessels arrayed in a sphere around the solar system. From the Thermopyla's command center, Elena watched the tactical display with outward calm while her mind raced through contingencies and calculations. 97 hours of non-stop construction, and we've managed to bring 2 more carriers online, Admiral Chen reported, joining her at the holographic display. 14 carriers against their 4,000 ships. Elena nodded, studying the enemy formation. They're staying beyond Jupiter's orbit, just as we predicted, outside the range of our psychic amplifiers. Around them, the command crew maintained disciplined silence, each focused on their station. The 14 battle carriers had taken position in a loose defensive sphere around Earth, each massive vessel bristling with weapons and surrounded by smaller support craft. "They're hailing us," announced the communications officer. Chen raised an eyebrow. "That's unexpected. Put it through." The holographic display shifted to show the cerulean overseer, its crystalline form pulsing with cold light. Behind it stood representatives of the other 3 species, the angular Vex, the swirling Morphani, and the chitinous Krell Queen. "Humans," the overseer began, its translated voice emotionless. "Your species has demonstrated unexpected capabilities. We offer terms for your surrender. Cede your battle carriers to us for study. Restrict your population to Earth. Accept oversight from the Galactic Concordat. In exchange, you will be permitted to live." Elena stepped forward. "And if we refuse?" "Annihilation," stated the Vex representative. "Your 14 vessels cannot hope to defeat our combined fleets. Surrender is the logical choice." Chen cut the transmission with a gesture. "They're stalling." "Why?" asked Elena. "With their numbers, they could overwhelm us immediately." The tactical officer looked up from his station. "Commander, we're detecting energy signatures consistent with boarding craft moving into position. Hundreds of them, primarily of Vex design." Understanding dawned on Elena's face. They don't want to destroy the carriers. They want to capture them. Study the psychic amplifiers. "Which they still don't understand," Chen added. "They think it's technology they can reverse engineer, not an inherent quality of human consciousness." Elena turned to the command crew. "Initiate Operation Hornet's Nest. All carriers prepare to receive boarders." Throughout the Thermopyla, sealed bulkheads slid open, revealing hidden compartments where Marine squads waited in powered armor. Engineers removed panels from walls, exposing defensive turrets and trap mechanisms. Medical teams stood ready in reinforced aid stations scattered throughout the vessel. "The Vex boarding craft will target our engineering sections first," Elena told her officers through the ship-wide comm. "Let them in. Let them think they've achieved surprise. Then close the trap." In space, the alien fleet began its approach, moving with precise coordination. The first wave of energy weapons fire struck the human carriers, dissipating against their thick asteroid hulls with minimal effect. "Return fire," ordered Chen. "All railguns, target their command vessels." The 14 carriers fired simultaneously, launching hypersonic projectiles that crossed the void in seconds. Several alien ships shattered under the impact, but the fleet pressed on, undaunted by their losses. The first Vex boarding craft latched onto the Thermopyla's outer hull, cutting tools burning through the asteroid material. Similar scenes played out across all 14 carriers as hundreds of alien vessels attached like parasites to the much larger human ships. "They're breaching the outer hull," reported the security chief. "Multiple intrusion points in sections 3, 7, and 12. Elena nodded calmly. "Let them penetrate to the secondary hull, then initiate containment protocols." She turned to Chen. "This is where we find out if Dr. Mbiki's theories about prolonged exposure are correct." Throughout the carrier, Marines took firing positions behind barricades, engineers stood ready to seal compartments, and in the central chamber, the psychic amplifier powered up to maximum intensity. "The trap is set," Elena said as the first breach alarm sounded. Now we wait for them to spring it. The first Vex commando units breached the Thermopyla's inner hull in Engineering Section 7. The crystalline aliens moved with mechanical precision, their angular bodies gleaming under the emergency lighting. Each carried an energy weapon that could slice through steel, and their faceted eyes scanned for threats with emotionless efficiency. Humans detected, communicated the lead Vex through their shared consciousness, proceeding to central control as planned. What they found instead was a labyrinth. The schematics provided by Cerulean intelligence had shown a logical, efficient layout. The reality was a maze of irregular corridors, dead ends, and unexpected junctions. The internal structure does not match our intelligence, reported a Vex scout. This vessel appears to have been designed specifically to confuse invaders. In the Thermopyla's command center, Alina watched the alien movements through the ship's internal sensors. They've reached the first choke point, she informed Chen. Initiating response. Throughout the invaded sections, hidden panels slid open, not revealing Marines in powered armor as the aliens might have expected, but ordinary engineers and maintenance crews armed with improvised weapons and intimate knowledge of their home. Technician Sarah Wong led her team from Maintenance Shaft Delta 7, emerging behind a group of Vex. For Earth, she shouted, activating an industrial plasma cutter. The superheated arc sliced through a Vex soldier's crystalline leg, toppling it. The other engineers attacked with welding torches, hydraulic wrenches, and modify power tools. The Vex returned fire, their energy weapons cutting down several humans. But for every defender that fell, 3 more emerged from hidden compartments and maintenance tunnels. The aliens, expecting organized military resistance, found themselves facing the chaotic fury of civilians defending their home. Meanwhile, deeper in the carrier, Dr. Mbeki monitored the psychic amplification chamber at maximum output. The effect is penetrating the entire ship now, he reported over the comm. Any alien aboard should be experiencing significant disruption to their shared consciousness. The first signs appeared 2 hours into the boarding action. A Vex squad leader hesitated when ordered to execute captured human engineers, experiencing something entirely new to its species: doubt. Unit G739, comply with directives, commanded the Vex commander. The squad leader's crystalline form trembled slightly. I question the strategic value of terminating non-combatant personnel. Alarm rippled through the Vex collective consciousness. Such individualistic thinking was unprecedented. In another section, a mixed unit of Vex and Krell encountered an unusual defense, the ship's hydroponics garden, where botanists continued tending plants even as battle raged through the carrier. The juxtaposition of peaceful agriculture amidst warfare confused the aliens' tactical programming. A young botanist looked up from her tomato plants as the aliens entered. Instead of fear, she displayed curiosity. "You've never seen food being grown before, have you?" she asked the startled Krell soldier. The insectoid alien chittered in confusion, its collective instincts battling with emerging individual thoughts, stimulated by prolonged exposure to the psychic amplifier. On the command deck, Alina received reports of the emerging pattern. "It's working," she told Chen. "The longer they stay aboard, the more individualized they become." Mbeki was right. Chen studied the tactical display showing the broader space battle. The alien fleet is in disarray. They've lost contact with nearly 60% of their boarding parties. Alina nodded grimly. And the ones they can still reach are no longer the same beings who boarded us. They're beginning to think for themselves. Throughout the Thermopyla and the other 13 carriers, the pattern repeated. Alien boarding parties encountered not just military resistance, but the full spectrum of humanity. Scientists continuing research, medical teams treating wounded from both sides, engineers repairing damage even as battles raged nearby. The controlled chaos of human society, functioning under extreme stress, presented the hive-mind aliens with something they had never encountered: resilience through diversity. In the psychic amplification chamber, The human volunteers connected to the system reported strange sensations, echoes of alien thoughts filtering back through the connection. Not just fear and confusion now, but curiosity, wonder, and the first tentative explorations of individual identity. We're not just defeating them, Mbiki realized as he studied the readings. We're changing them at the most fundamental level. 3 months after the Battle of Sol, Captain Alina Vasiliev stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, humanity's newest and largest battle carrier. Unlike its predecessors, the Prometheus had been designed with peace in mind, though its weapons remained just as formidable. The massive vessel moved steadily through the crystalline structures that orbited the cerulean homeworld, a journey that would have been unthinkable before the war. Still no defensive response, reported her tactical officer. Their orbital platforms are tracking us, but weapons remain powered down. Elena nodded, studying the alien world through the view screen. Beautiful blue-white spirals covered the planet's surface, the physical manifestation of cerulean consciousness spanning continents. "They're hailing us," announced the communications officer. On screen, Elena ordered, straightening her formal uniform. The cerulean overseer appeared, its crystalline form noticeably different from when they had last communicated. Irregular patterns now disrupted its once perfect symmetry, physical evidence of the psychological changes the species had undergone. "Captain Vasiliev," the overseer greeted her, its translated voice carrying emotional nuances that had been absent before. "The Cerulean Conclave welcomes the human delegation." "Conclave?" Elena asked. "I understood your species was governed by a unified consciousness." "We were," the overseer acknowledged. "That structure no longer serves us. The exposure to human consciousness during the conflict has changed us. We now recognize the value of individual perspective within collective action." Dr. Mbiki, standing beside Elena, leaned forward with scientific curiosity. "The psychic effect was more permanent than we anticipated." "Indeed," confirmed the overseer. "Those who experienced direct contact with humans have become something new, neither fully collective nor fully individual. We call ourselves the Conclave now, an assembly of distinct minds working toward shared goals." As the Prometheus entered orbit, Elena and her diplomatic team prepared to shuttle down to the surface. Admiral Chen offered a final word of caution before she departed. "Remember, Captain, this is still a first contact situation in many ways. We're meeting a civilization that has fundamentally transformed because of us." On the planet's surface, Elena was escorted into a vast chamber where representatives from all 4 alien species awaited. The Cerulean Overseer, several Vex whose perfect geometric forms now showed subtle asymmetries, gaseous morpheni contained in new vessels that allowed for individual expression, and a delegation of Krell no longer led by their queen, but representing different hive clusters. "Behold what you have created, Captain," said the Overseer, gesturing to the assembled aliens. The survivors of the boarding actions returned to their worlds, changed, carrying individual thoughts, questions, doubts. Our civilizations are still adapting to this new reality. "Was it worth the cost?" Elena asked quietly, thinking of the casualties on both sides. A Vex representative stepped forward, its crystalline surface reflecting light in patterns that suggested emotion, something impossible for its species before. "We were stagnant for millennia. Perfectly ordered, perfectly unchanging. What you call individualism has brought chaos, yes, but also growth." The Krell representative chittered in agreement. The Hides now question. "The queens must persuade rather than command. It is difficult but necessary evolution." Elena presented the terms Admiral Chen had prepared. A treaty establishing boundaries, technological exchange protocols, and recognition of Earth's sovereignty. But as the discussion progressed, she realized something profound. The document was becoming less about separation and more about connection. "Your battle carriers," the Overseer observed as they finalized the agreement, "we once feared them as weapons of destruction. Now we understand they are also vessels of transformation. Each one contains the full spectrum of human experience. Your science, art, agriculture, medicine, conflict, cooperation. Elena smiled, understanding dawning. They're not just warships. They're arcs, carrying everything that makes us human. As she signed a treaty on behalf of Earth, Elena reflected on the irony. Humanity had built the carriers to survive an existential threat. Instead, they had become the means by which humans would share their most powerful trait with the galaxy, the balance between individual identity and collective purpose that had made Earth's chaotic, diverse civilization so resilient and so terrifying to those who had never known anything else. The dark reality of human battle carriers had indeed filled aliens with fear, but in the end, that fear had transformed into something neither species had expected: hope.